He vanished when he was 7. No witnesses, no clues, just silence. For 11 years, no one saw him, until one rainy night. He knocked on his childhood door. What happened in those missing years? And why did he come back now? Stay with me, because once you hear what he remembers, you won't forget it. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? It was almost midnight in Asheville, North Carolina, and the rain hadn't stopped in hours. Not the kind of cinematic rain that gently taps on windows like an old friend. No, this was cold, hard rain, smearing the streetlights into streaks of gold and bleeding the city into a blur of gray. You could smell the wet pavement, that sharp mineral scent of stone, mold, and memory, and hear the rhythmic whine of tires slicing through puddles like clockwork ghosts. Most of Kenilworth was asleep by then. The historic neighborhood, known for its cozy brick bungalows and tall oaks lining every winding road, was a postcard of Southern quiet. But that night something was different. Something had shifted. The streetlights flickered twice outside 2I-15 Elmridge Drive, just enough to make the security camera on the porch glitch and reset, missing exactly 13 seconds of footage, enough to let someone walk up without being seen. That someone was soaked to the bone, standing motionless in front of the old Ellison home. He wasn't wearing a coat, just a faded hoodie, clinging to his lean frame, the hood pulled over his head like a shadow refusing to leave. His hands, trembling slightly, gripped the straps of a small worn-out backpack. The house hadn't changed much. The paint was more faded now, a soft pale blue that once shimmered in the sunlight, but now looked tired under the porch light. The wind chimes near the window, shaped like tiny brass moons, swung weakly in the wind, their hollow clinking, barely audible under the storm. The boy stood there, not moving, not knocking, just staring, as if the house itself might speak first. Inside, a woman stirred. Hannah Ellison hadn't truly slept in 11 years, not since the day her son vanished. Her eyes opened like they had a mind of their own, wired to a current that buzzed through her even in sleep. She sat up slowly, not sure what woke her, but feeling something, an ache that had lived in her chest since June 22nd, 2014, the day Jacob went missing. She reached for the glass of water on her nightstand. It was empty. Downstairs on the porch, the boy finally lifted his hand and knocked 3 times. The door creaked open half an inch. Just the sound of a chain lock sliding taut as Hannah peered through the crack, her face pale, framed by strands of graying brown hair. She almost didn't see him, but when she did, everything inside her seemed to leave at once. The air, the blood, the weight of 11 years. He said 6 words that unraveled everything. I think this used to be mine, and then she fainted. 10 hours earlier, that same boy, name unknown, age estimated, origin unclear, had walked into a gas station 40 miles away in the small mountain town of Brevard. The clerk, a teenage girl with chipped black nail polish and a hoodie that read, "Nothing Matters," later told police she almost didn't look up. He just stood there, silent, eyes darting. He had no wallet, no ID, only a name scribbled on the inside of his backpack, Caleb M. When she asked if he needed help, he simply said, "How far is Asheville?" Then walked back out into the rain. The Ellison house was quiet now, save for the low hum of the fridge and the occasional groan of settling wood. Hannah lay on the couch, a cold cloth on her forehead, breathing unevenly. The boy sat across from her in the armchair, his wet clothes replaced with an old set of pajamas that once belonged to her ex-husband. She hadn't said much since waking up. Neither had he. The silence between them was dense, not awkward, ancestral. It was the silence of 2 people who shared something neither could name. Finally she spoke, barely above a whisper. What's your name?" He hesitated. Then, I don't know. She blinked, tears pooling. How did you get here? I walked. From where? I'm not sure. Every answer was like a knife made of fog. You could feel the edge, but not see it. She looked at his face again and again. 11 years. Could it be? Was it really him? Jacob? She asked. He said nothing, but his eyes flickered. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked louder than it should have. Then came the sound of keys at the front door. Hannah sat up, startled. Tom, her ex-husband, still had a key. She'd called him right after she cussed. Or maybe she didn't. Maybe he just felt something. The door opened, and then time. Tom Ellison hadn't aged as gracefully as Hannah. He was broader now, hair thinning, wearing the same leather jacket he'd worn the day they filed the missing persons report. When he saw the boy, he didn't speak, just stared. And then, his voice breaking, he whispered, Jake? The boy looked at him, like he was trying to remember a face from a dream. Do you know me? Tom asked. The boy's lips parted. He looked down at his hands, then at the fireplace, then back at Tom. You built me a treehouse. Tom froze. Hannah gasped. You remember that? She asked. The boy nodded. It had a green flag and a broken ladder. The floodgates opened. Tom dropped to his knees. Hannah covered her mouth with shaking hands. You're home. My God, you're home. But as the boy looked around the house, the picture frames, the worn rug, the echo of a childhood, his face shifted, almost unsure, like part of him wanted to believe it, but another part couldn't. And then he said something no one expected. There was another woman. Hannah's face went pale again. What woman? The boy swallowed. She told me I wasn't supposed to come back. He never liked mirrors. That was the first thing Hannah noticed the next morning, the way he avoided his reflection, as if afraid of what might look back. Jacob, or the boy they believed to be Jacob, sat quietly at the breakfast table. Sunlight crept through the kitchen blinds in long stripes across the floor. Dust floated in the beams, like snow caught in a photograph. He hadn't said much since waking up, just sat there, stirring his cereal, watching the spoon spin in circles. Hannah busied herself with tasks that didn't need doing, wiping already clean counters, rearranging spoons, pretending she wasn't studying him out of the corner of her eye. But how could she not? He looked like her husband, or like her former husband. Same nose, same stubborn curve to the jaw. But his eyes, those weren't the same. They were older. He was only 18, but they looked 40, like they'd lived through too many winters, too many secrets. You slept okay? She asked. He nodded. Do you want anything else? He shook his head. Do you remember anything else? About where you were? He paused. There was a red truck. I remember the engine was loud. A truck? He nodded. And a woman's voice. She sang to me. Not lullabies, older songs. I think she smoked. Her voice was rough. Do you remember her name? He didn't answer. What about yours? She asked again, softer this time. Do you remember what you were called? The spoon kept spinning. Then, Caleb. It came out like a question, not a statement. She called me Caleb sometimes. Other times, she called me kid, or boy, or nothing at all. Hannah's breath caught in her throat. She wanted to grab him, hold him, tell him he was safe, that it was over. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. 11 years earlier, Jacob Ellison was the kind of kid who talked to spiders, not because he was strange, though some kids thought so, but because he believed everything deserved a name, a voice, a place in the story. The spider on the windowsill was called Raymond. The squirrel outside the house, Captain Fluff. He was a quiet kid, not shy but observant, the kind who'd watch a storm roll in for an hour without blinking just to see how the clouds folded into themselves. His favorite toy was a plastic camera. Not a real one, just a Fisher-Price imitation, But he used it like it mattered, documenting ants, tree bark, clouds, his mom dancing while cooking. "You're going to be a filmmaker," Tom used to say. "Or a spy," Hannah added. "Or a storm chaser," Jacob would shout. He had dreams, not huge ones, just warm ones. Simple ones, like being seen, being safe. On the day he vanished, June 22, 2014, it was hot, the kind of sticky Carolina summer where even the air feels tired. Tom had been building shelves in the garage. Hannah was on a call with the school board. Jacob asked to go outside to the treehouse. "Just for a little bit," he said. That was the last thing they remembered. When Tom went to check 20 minutes later, the yard was empty. No Jacob, no Captain Fluff, no broken ladder, only the green flag waving in the wind. Back in the present, Jacob stared at the backyard through the kitchen window. The flag was gone now. So was the treehouse. "Do you remember this?" Hannah asked softly, standing beside him. He stared for a long time, then whispered, "Yes, but it feels like someone else's memory." Tom returned later that afternoon. He hadn't slept either. After the initial shock wore off, he'd spent the night driving through old streets, roads he hadn't taken since the divorce, trying to put together what this meant. DNA tests would be done, but he didn't need one. He'd felt it. The second he saw the boy, "He's mine," Tom said as he walked in. "He doesn't remember much," Hannah replied. "Doesn't matter. We do." They both watched him from the living room doorway. He was in the backyard now, slowly walking the perimeter of the fence. Every so often he'd stop, like he was checking for something invisible, a buried memory, a signal. "He talks in fragments," Hannah said, "like he's afraid to say too much." "That's trauma," Tom replied. "He's protecting himself." From who? Tom didn't answer. But both were thinking the same thing. Whoever took him was still out there. The boy came inside holding something, a small rusted toy soldier. He held it up to them. "Was this mine?" Tom squinted. "Yeah, you used to bury them. You said they were on missions underground." Jake, "I dug this one up. It was next to a spoon." "You remember burying it?" "But my hands did." Later that night, Jacob found the old photo. They'd been tucked under the coffee table for years. Dusty, forgotten. He flipped through them carefully. There he was, grinning on a tire swing, eating corn on the cob at a 4th of July fair, sitting on Hannah's lap, pointing at the camera. The boy in the pictures looked happy, free, whole. He didn't feel like that boy now. But the more he stared, the more something flickered inside. "That was your 5th birthday," Hannah said behind him. "You cried because we ran out of balloons." Jacob didn't respond, but his fingers trembled slightly. He closed the album. "I need to sleep." "Of course," Hannah said. "Your room's just—" "No." He looked at her. "Not there." She nodded quickly, heart breaking a little. "You can sleep anywhere you want." He chose the couch, but didn't sleep at all. He stared at the ceiling all night, counting the grooves in the plaster. The next morning, Detective Nora Hayes knocked on the door. She had been retired for 4 years, but the second she heard the rumor, she drove to the house. Hannah opened the door, hesitant. "Nora, I just want to see him. He's resting. Please." Tom appeared behind her. "He remembers the treehouse," he said. Nora's eyes watered. Can I talk to him?" They hesitated, then nodded. She stepped inside, slowly, like entering a chapel. Jacob sat at the kitchen table again, hands wrapped around a mug of warm milk. He looked up and froze. So did she. "Do you know me?" Nora asked. Jacob's voice was quiet. "You had a notebook. Blue cover. You always carried it." Asked. "Yes. Yes, I did." "You cried once, in the yard. How do you—" "I saw it. Through the window." Nora sat down across from him. "Do you remember what happened?" He didn't speak. "Then, I heard voices. I thought they were arguing. I left the treehouse. I walked to the side gate. It was open. There was The red truck? She asked. He nodded. Did someone pull you in? He shook his head. No, they told me. Mom said I had to go. Hannah gasped from the doorway. What? Jacob looked confused. That's what she said. The woman. She said my mom told her I had to go away for a while. Nora looked at Hannah. Do you know anything about this? No. God, no. Jacob looked between them. Is that not true? Of course not, Hannah said, voice breaking. Jacob, I would never... He stood up. I need air. He walked outside, barefoot, into the yard. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled of wet pine and rusted memories. Tom and Hannah watched him go. And for the first time, they wondered, what if he wasn't just a victim? What if he had known more than he let on? It started with the drawer. 3 nights after Jacob returned, Hannah walked past the hallway cabinet, the one no one had opened in years, and found it slightly ajar. Inside was a collection of things long buried in the sediment of grief. Jacob's school drawings, his blue baseball cap, a cracked pair of sunglasses shaped like stars, and beneath it all, a note. A child's handwriting. She pulled it out, heart pounding. The ink was faded, the edges browned. If I leave, I'll come back. Don't cry, Mommy. I'll come back when I remember how. Her hands trembled. She didn't remember this. She didn't remember him writing it. And yet, it was his handwriting. The curved M, the tiny sun drawn in the corner. Tom, she called. He came quickly, sensing the shift in her voice. She showed him the note. He read it twice, then looked up. This wasn't in here before. No. You sure? Tom, I packed this drawer myself the year after he disappeared. I've opened it 100 times since. So someone put this here. Recently. They stared at each other, then toward the hallway, where Jacob had just walked out of the guest room, eyes vacant. He saw them holding the note, and stopped. What's that? Do you remember this? Hannah asked. Jacob looked at the paper, then said something that sent ice through their bones. She told me to hide it. Who? The woman. She said it would make you feel better. You mean Claire? Tom asked. Jacob flinched at the name. That's what she called herself, yeah. Claire. So Claire gave you this note? No, I wrote it, but she told me what to write. Detective Nora Hayes came back the next morning. She brought boxes, old files from the case, photos, interview transcripts, maps with highlighter trails. Her badge was gone, but the fire inside hadn't left. She sat with Jacob at the kitchen table, while Hannah and Tom watched nervously. You said the woman was named Claire, Nora began. Do you remember where you lived with her? Jacob shook his head. It was a house, but the windows were covered with thick curtains, and the walls smelled like oil. Oil? Like gasoline. Do you remember school, friends? No school, no other kids. Did she ever take you to the doctor? He paused. Once I had a fever. She said if I talked too much, they'd take me away. Did she hit you? Another pause, then, only when I asked about my real name? Nora leaned forward, voice gentle. Do you remember anything else? Details? Signs? Jacob rubbed his fingers together, a nervous tick. There was a room. Locked all the time. She said it was where the past lived. What was inside? I never saw it. But I heard things, metal, whirring, like machines, sometimes music, old music. Sinatra, I think. Do you think you could find the house again? I'm not sure. If we drove around, would anything look familiar? He hesitated. Maybe. They drove that afternoon. Tom drove. Jacob sat in the front, Nora in the back, watching his every reaction. They moved slowly through Brevard, through outskirts and mountain roads, past houses with long driveways and American flags. At one bend, Jacob suddenly tensed. Here. Tom slowed. This house? Jacob shook his head. Not this one, but I remember this bend. Why? We always turned right here. then another left. Tom followed the directions. They passed a row of burned-out cabins, a shed with a plastic flamingo, then up a dirt path nearly hidden by overgrowth, a house. 2 stories. Faded white siding, windows blacked out. It was abandoned now, but Jacob went still. This was it. Nora leaned forward. You're sure? He nodded slowly. That window, he said, pointing. That was my room. They got out. The smell hit first. Mildew, dust, and something acrid. The front door was padlocked, but Nora spotted a broken window along the side. Stay here, she told Jacob. No. Jacob, I need to see it. Tom hesitated. We'll go together. They climbed in through the window. Inside, the house was hollow, quiet in a way that screamed. Faded furniture, rotting curtains, a stained recliner with a sunken seat. Dust blanketed everything like snow from a forgotten war. Jacob led them to the back. Here, he said. A small door. Padlocked. Nora pulled out a flashlight and picked the lock with surprising ease. The door creaked open. Stairs led down into a basement. It smelled like copper. They descended slowly. What they found below shattered them. Rows of boxes. Labeled J.E. Year 1, J.E. Year 3. Photos, notes, recordings, and on one shelf, a box labeled Return. Inside, a map of Asheville, a list of dates, and a set of keys. Jacob's face was pale. She planned to bring me back. Nora opened one of the boxes labeled Year 1. Inside, drawings, hundreds, crayons, paper, paint, all by Jacob. He picked one up. A treehouse, with a green flag. Tears spilled from his eyes. I don't remember drawing these. Nora turned on a small recorder from the box labeled Notes. A voice crackled. Claire's voice. He keeps asking, keeps saying he remembers the tree. I tell him it's just a dream. But I think he knows more than he lets on. Tom sat down slowly. What the hell is this place? An archive, Nora whispered. She kept everything. Jacob was shaking. Why? Nora looked around. Because she was preparing for something. Maybe to prove something. Then they heard it. A sound upstairs. Footsteps. Heavy? Deliberate? Nora turned off the recorder. Everyone went still. Someone's here, Tom whispered. Jacob froze. It's her. They didn't find anyone upstairs. The door was open when they came up from the basement, swinging gently on its hinges. A gust of wind had knocked over a lamp. The screen door clattered loosely in the breeze. No car, no signs of life. But they knew someone had been there. Jacob was the first to speak after minutes of silence. She used to say, the house was alive. That it listened. Tom placed a hand on his shoulder. You're safe now. But they all knew that wasn't entirely true. Not yet. Not even close. Back in Asheville, Nora contacted a retired colleague, Detective Mark Salazar, who once investigated child abductions in the area. She gave him everything they found, the recordings, the documents, the photos. Mark called her 2 days later, voice grim. The name Claire Mitchell came up once, around 2012, a welfare check. No charges, but flagged behavior. Where? Outside Boone, 3 counties north. Same Claire? Not sure, but she lived on a property similar to the one Jacob described. Curtains sealed, no contact with neighbors. Can you send me the report? All did. Nora opened the PDF and froze. There's a photo, grainy, low res, but the face, it was her, older now, but unmistakable. The woman who'd taken Jacob had been reported to authorities 2 years before his disappearance, and nothing was done. She printed the report and drove straight to the Ellison house. Hannah opened the door, looking tired, pale. Is he okay? Nora asked. Hannah nodded. Sleeping. He's been quiet, withdrawn. He's remembering more. I can see it in his eyes. And? Nora held up the file. Her name was Claire. She was already on record. So what do? We find her. And we find out why she took him and why she gave him back. Hannah looked down. I keep wondering if I ever knew my son at all. You knew him, Nora said, but you didn't know who was watching. Meanwhile, Jacob was remembering things, small things. A blue mug with a chipped rim, a whistle, old, rusted, a dollhouse, none not for him, but one Claire kept locked in a glass case. It was hers, he said one dinner. She talked to it like it was alive. Tom raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? She said it was her daughter's, but she never said her daughter's name. Did she have a daughter? I don't know. I never saw anyone. But sometimes at night I'd hear her singing, through the walls, lullabies. Did she ever mention your real family? Jacob nodded slowly. She said my mom gave me away. That's a lie, Hannah whistled. He looked at her. But she made it sound so real. Like you left me in the rain, like I was a mistake. Hannah began to cry. Tom put an arm around her. Jacob looked away. The hurting, the wondering, the anger rising in his chest and not knowing where to put it. Nora's investigation led her to a storage facility in Boone. Unit 43, the number matched the brass tag Jacob had found sewn into the lining of his old backpack. He hadn't thought anything of it until he dreamed of the number over and over again. 43. 43. It's where the silence lives, Claire had whispered in the dream. Nora used a warrant to access the unit. Inside were boxes, dozens, marked with names, dates, numbers. She called Hannah and Tom. She didn't just take Jacob, she said over the phone. There were others. Jacob was listening nearby. He froze. Others? Yes, Nora confirmed. She kept files on them, photos, some from old newspapers, others more recent. Jacob stood up. Why would she do that? I don't know, Nora admitted, but I think she was trying to build something. Build what? A family, she said, or a case. A case? Maybe she believed the system failed. Maybe she thought she was saving us, Jacob said. Hannah looked at him sharply. Us? He didn't answer. He just walked outside again, into the backyard, where the wind was picking up, and the sky had turned gray. That night, Jacob had another memory, a sharp one. He was in the locked room, not just near it, inside. The light was dim, yellow. There was a camera, a typewriter, and stacks of journals. Claire was speaking softly. One day they'll see. They'll understand why I had to do it. Do what? The younger Jacob asked. Give you truth, real truth, not what they fed you. Are you my mom? In every way that matters. What about my real mom? She gave up. Why? Claire didn't answer. She just hummed, and the light flickered. The next morning, Jacob asked for the journals. From the storage unit, he told Nora. They're being reviewed, she said. I need to see them. Why? Because she said the truth was in there. Nora hesitated. Let me talk to Mark. Maybe I can get you access to one. She returned 2 hours later with a manila envelope. Inside, pages from journals were 7, handwritten, dense, rambling. But one passage stood out. The Ellisons lied. I have proof. They wanted him gone. They told me where to find him. Jacob's blood ran cold. What does that mean? Nora shook her head. We don't know. Could be delusion. Or not. Jacob, she always said people wear masks, that the ones who smile the most are hiding the worst. Better. I need to ask my mom something. He waited until after dinner. They sat on the porch, just the two of them. A breeze rolled through the oaks. Cicadas hummed in the distance. Did you ever meet Claire? He asked quietly. Hannah went still, too still. What? Before I disappeared? Did you know her? No. Are you sure? Jacob, because she wrote that you gave me to her. That's a lie. But you knew her. No. She said you came to the house, once. Silence. Tell me the truth. I am. Then why does everything feel wrong? Because trauma lies to us. It scrambles memories, confuses the real and the imagined. You, Jacob, please, tell me the truth. She didn't speak, and in that silence, something broke. Nora returned the next morning with a flash drive. "One of the recordings," she said. "You should hear it." They played it on Tom's laptop. Claire's voice again, calm, sharp. She said she couldn't raise him, that her husband had left, that she was drowning. She asked me to take him, just for a while. Said no one would believe her if she changed her mind. And I knew she'd never come back. Jacob stared at the screen. She was talking about my mom. She was. So it's true? We don't know that yet. Claire may have distorted what happened, but what if it was true? Nora didn't answer. She couldn't. That night Jacob left the house. He walked for miles. To the edge of the park where he used to play, he sat on the old swings, rusted and broken, and stared at the stars. He remembered a song, one Claire used to hum, and for the first time in days, he hummed it too. Not because he missed her, but because he knew which version of the story and which one he had been. Jacob didn't come home that night. He walked until his feet bled, past the town square, through the edge of the woods behind the high school, until he reached a motel with flickering letters, Econo Lodge. Half of the sign burned out, reading simply, Lodge. He paid in cash, slept in his clothes, and dreamed of fire. The next morning, Nora knocked on the Ellison door with her jaw clenched and her eyes darker than usual. Tom opened it, groggy. "He's not here," Tom said. "We thought he was with you." "We need to talk." She walked inside, placed a folder on the table, opened it. Inside a photo. Dated March 2014, it showed Hannah Ellison standing on a porch, shaking hands with Claire Mitchell. "Where did you get this?" Tom asked. "County records. The house Claire lived in before she moved to Brevard was owned by a woman named Lorraine Harper. She died in 2013. Guess who bought it?" "Who?" "Your wife." Tom's face drained. "That's not possible." "It's legal. On paper, she co-owned it with Claire for 8 months. Then she signed over her half." Hannah stepped into the room barefoot. Her hair was tangled, her eyes swollen. She stopped cold when she saw the photo. "You lied," Nora said. "You knew her." Hannah looked down, said nothing. "You gave Jacob to her," Nora said, voice trembling. "Didn't you?" Tom stood shocked. "Hannah." But Hannah's voice was hollow, mechanical. "I didn't know she would keep him. I thought just for a while." "What?" Tom shouted. She sat down slowly. "I was breaking, Tom. You were working 14 hours a day. I had no help, no sleep. I was afraid I'd hurt him. I was afraid I already had." Tears slipped from her eyes. Claire was supposed to be temporary, a week, 2 at most. She had helped women before. She said I needed rest, a chance to breathe. "You let her take him," Nora said. "I was going to bring him back." "You filed a police report." "Because she left. She disappeared with him. I didn't know where. I panicked, and then it was too late." "You lied to all of us." "I thought I was protecting him from me." Meanwhile, Jacob sat in the motel, staring at the old brass tag he had pulled from the lining of his backpack. Church 43, he remembered now. It wasn't just a number. It was the room number in Claire's first house, the one in Boone. That's where the real journals were, the first ones, the ones that mattered. He took the bus north, didn't tell anyone. He found the house easily. The yard was overgrown, the mailbox rusted shut, but the door wasn't locked. Inside it smelled of rot and paint thinner, and under the floorboards of room 43 he found them, 7 black leather journals, all dated between 2012 and 2014. He sat on the dusty floor, heart pounding, and began to read. The first entries were obsessive. Claire wrote about child neglect cases, about failures in the system, about her belief that children were safer outside their families. The Ellison boy is beautiful, curious, alert, but she's unraveling. She doesn't even notice he eats dust off the baseboards. He asked why Daddy doesn't come home until dark. She said he's saving the world. He's not. She left him alone in the yard again today. I watched from the car. 5 hours. No one checked. Jacob blinked. She was stalking us. Another passage. The mother came to me crying. Said she couldn't sleep. Said she dreamed of drowning. I told her I could help. She agreed. And then, weeks later, he's here now. Says he misses the green flag. I lied. Told him they sent me because they're sick, that he'd see them soon. I think I love him, but he's smarter than the others. Jacob dropped the journal, his whole body shaking. She had been watching them, manipulating, waiting for the perfect moment. And his mother. Back at the Ellison house, Nora stood outside in the rain, phone to her ear. We have to find him, now. Tom came up behind her. Where would he go? Where it started. Boone. She took him there first. That's where the house is. I'll drive. No, I need you here in case he comes back. He won't. Nora stared at him. No, he won't. Jacob stayed in the house for hours, reading, processing, grieving, not just for the time he lost, but for the people he never really had. He found a final page, ripped from one of the journals, folded and hidden under a loose plank. It read, "One day he'll find this, and he'll hate me. But maybe he'll also hate them, because monsters aren't just found in basements. Sometimes they live in kitchens. Sometimes they tuck you in." That night he called a number he had memorized. Claire's number. It still worked. She answered on the third ring. "Caleb?" He said nothing. "Is it you?" "My name is Jacob. They lied to you." "I saved you." "No, you stole me." "I gave you peace. You gave me silence." "Nev, they didn't want you." "Then why do I still want them?" He hung up and cried until dawn. Nora found him the next morning, sitting on the floor, the journals in a pile beside him. "I know everything now," he said. She crouched beside him. "No, you don't." He looked at her. "What do you mean?" She reached into her coat, pulled out a folded photo, Jacob's 5th birthday party, but not the one in the photo albums. This one showed Claire, in the background, smiling, holding a cake. "She was already in your life," Nora whispered, "long before the day you vanished." Jacob's breath caught. "Why?" "Because she believed you were hers, from the start. But you were targeted, Jacob, groomed. Your whole life was preparation." "What am I supposed to do with that?" Nora said nothing, because there was no answer, just the sound of the wind through the broken window. The reunion was silent. Jacob stepped back into the Ellison house at sunset. The same door he had once knocked on, unsure of who he was, now swung open to receive someone who had learned too much. Tom stood in the kitchen doorway. He looked older, more fragile. Jacob said nothing. Tom opened his arms. He just looked past him, toward the hallway, where his mother stood barefoot, frozen. Hannah had rehearsed what she would say, but the words fell apart the moment she saw his face. There was no anger in his eyes, just distance. As if she were no longer his center. Just another question he hadn't answered yet. "Jacob," she whispered. He blinked. "You gave me away." She flinched. "I thought I was protecting you. You lied. I was drowning. So you let me drown instead." "I didn't know she would." "You knew. Maybe not all of it, but you knew enough. I've lived in regret every day since. That's not the same as pain. Jacob." She taught me how to disappear. The room went quiet. And now I don't know how to stay. Tom found him later, sitting on the floor of the old treehouse foundation, just a patch of weeds and broken wood, the green flag long gone. He sat beside his son. "You don't have to talk." Jacob didn't. Not for a long time. Until, "I remember you reading to me." Tom smiled softly. "Dr. Seuss?" "No, that book with the shipwreck." "Ah, Island of the Blue Dolphins. You liked the ending." "I liked that she chose to survive." They sat in silence. "Do you hate her?" Jacob asked. "Some days." "Do you hate yourself?" Tom swallowed. "Every day." Jacob looked at the dirt. "I think I want to forgive her, but I don't know how." "Maybe don't start with that. Maybe just start with being allowed not to." Jacob nodded. "I want to feel home again." "You can." "No, I can't." "Then let us build something new." Hannah tried once more that night. She knocked on his bedroom door, the one he still refused to sleep in. He let her in. She sat at the edge. He remained on the floor back against. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said. "I don't even expect you to speak to me." "Then why are you here?" "Because you're my son. You stopped being my mom the day you opened that car door." Tears ran silently down her face. "I would give anything to undo." He didn't answer, just stared at the wall. Until he asked, "Do you remember my plastic camera?" Her eyes lit up with pain. "Claire said you threw it away." "I didn't. It's in the hallway drawer." He stood, walked out, opened the drawer, and there it was, dusty, cracked, but still whole. He held it in his hands, then turned. "If I let you stay in my life, you don't get to be the mom who tucked me in. You have to be the woman who left, and the one who waited. Both. And you don't get to cry when I don't hug you." He placed the camera on the counter. "Then we'll try," and walked away. The next week, Jacob returned to the treehouse ruins. He brought a small flag, green, not as bright as the old one, but it moved the same in the wind. He hammered it into the dirt. Tom watched from the back porch. That weekend, Nora came by one last time. She handed Jacob a box. Inside, Claire's final letter. Never sent. "Jacob, I thought I was saving you. I thought the world would hurt you more than I ever could. I see now that I became what I feared. I hope one day you can build something from the pieces I left behind. Maybe even love someone without fear of losing them. And maybe in that moment you'll understand what I meant when I called you mine. Not because I owned you, but because I believed I was the only one who saw you." Jacob folded the letter, burned it in the fire pit, and watched the ashes rise. He never went back to the house in Boone, never spoke to Claire again. But sometimes, when he passed mirrors, he forced himself to look, not for her, not for his parents, but for himself. Because if he could still see the boy with the plastic camera, maybe that boy hadn't died. Maybe he had just waited. Autumn came quietly to Asheville, the kind of autumn that doesn't announce itself. It just arrives. One morning you wake up and the air is crisp. The leaves crunch beneath your shoes, and the wind carries a kind of music you hadn't noticed before. Jacob walked the path behind the old school where he once disappeared. He came there often now, not to look for what he lost, but to acknowledge it. He carried the plastic camera in his pocket. It didn't work anymore, but that wasn't the point. He found the tree where he once took his last photo as a boy. A crooked oak with initials carved into its base. It was still there, still leaning, still holding secrets. He sat beneath it, closed his eyes, listened. For once, there was no Claire, no screaming, no broken voices, just wind. Back home, Tom had built a new bench under the treehouse ruins. He never said why, but Jacob knew. Sometimes they sat there together, no talking, just being. It was enough. Hannah was in therapy now. Real therapy, 3 times a week. She never asked Jacob to forgive her again. She just showed up, quietly, brought him tea when he couldn't sleep. Left a light on in the hallway but never asked him to use it. On his birthday, she left a gift on the kitchen table, wrapped in newspaper. Inside, the green flag, newly sewn. Jacob didn't speak, but he kept it in his room. That meant more than words. Detective Nora Hayes eventually stopped visiting, but she mailed one final letter. Some mysteries don't end with handcuffs or courtroom confessions. Some end in silence or in eyes that look. But I believe the truth always leaves fingerprints. You just have to learn where to dust. Jacob kept that letter folded inside his journal. Sometimes he read it when the world felt unreal. The story spread. Of course it did. Boy missing for 11 years found alive. There were headlines, podcasts, speculation. Claire disappeared again, vanished from every known address. The world moved on, but Jacob didn't want to be a symbol, didn't want to be the poster child for resilience. He wanted to build, so he applied to community college. Photography. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew this. He wanted to capture the things no one saw. One evening, Hannah asked if he wanted to go through the old photo albums again. He said yes. They sat on the living room floor, flipping pages. Jacob paused on one picture, him at the pool, wearing a red Mickey Mouse shirt, smiling wide. "That's the day before," Hannah said. "I look so free. You were." She gently touched his. "Then let's remember it together." He nodded. In his new room, not the one he had as a child, but the one he chose now, Jacob placed a new photo on the wall. It wasn't of him. It was the bench, the green flag, the crooked oak, taken from below with soft light and long shadows. The caption beneath it read, "Where I stopped being lost." And one night, long after the lights were off and the house was quiet, someone knocked on the door. 3 times. Soft, familiar. Tom opened it, but there was no one there. Only the wind, only the memory, only the reminder that sometimes, even when the person comes back, a part of them stays missing. Jacob sat in the kitchen, drinking tea. The steam rose like ghosts. He turned to his mother, sitting across from him. "Do you ever wish we could go back?" She looked at him. And then at the photo on the wall, "No," she said. "I just wish we'd started seeing each other sooner." He nodded. "Me too." He reached into his pocket, pulled out the plastic camera, held it up. "Smile." She did. He clicked the shutter. No film. But again, that wasn't the point. Sometimes healing doesn't look like a happy ending. Sometimes it looks like surviving long enough to find your name again, to hear someone say it without fear, to walk through the door you once left behind, and still be brave enough to stay. Because home isn't always where you were taken from. Sometimes it's where you choose